Good morning. It's Thursday again. That means it's stream time here for me. Welcome to the, well, I think I said the same thing last time. Welcome to the probably last episode of this stream here, where I'm working on, a homework assignment that my son got months ago, meanwhile. And so I don't want to go into too much detail what the project is. I invite you to go back to the previous recordings. You can find all of this here on Twitch, or if it's no longer there, then if it's past the retention period, you can also find those videos on YouTube. So just in short, the story is that I am working on a word puzzle solver. A word puzzle is a grid of random characters where you're supposed to, well, spot the words that are hidden in there. And like I said, my son had one of these as a homework assignment, and I just thought, well, maybe we can create some custom vision, artificial intelligence combined with some cloud-based services on Azure. So we could just upload an image and let the machines find the words and then return everything to us. So this is what I built in the past 5 episodes of this stream here. And now in this one, I want to deploy the solution to Azure. Everything is working. I want to deploy it to Azure, but I don't want to just go and right click in Visual Studio and say publish to the cloud. Instead, I want to go through Azure DevOps so that we get continuous deployment, continuous integration. Whenever we change something, whenever we push something to our repo, it should be reflected up in the cloud. That's the plan for today. Caveats. Well, number one, every time I try to set up a deployment pipeline on DevOps, something goes wrong. So I expect things to go wrong today. We'll see where it's breaking and what is breaking and where I'm stuck. Number two, yesterday I was called by a delivery company. They said, hey, are you going to be at home tomorrow? We got a delivery for you. And I'm like, yep. When are you planning to arrive at my house? And they just told me, well, it's okay if you're at home between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. I was like, how can you expect people to be at home? Calling them one day ahead between 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's a pretty long time. And they're like, yeah, I mean, you don't want the delivery? And I'm like, sure I do, but this is just nothing that you can do with the average employee, right? So luckily, working for Microsoft, I'm on home office. So that means I am around, and I agreed that they can deliver it. They haven't arrived so far, but we all know Murphy's Law. When will they arrive? Probably in about 5 minutes, just after me starting the stream. So it could be that if the doorbell rings, that I have to quickly go downstairs and pick up this delivery. And then I should be back within a couple of minutes. All right, with that out of the way, let's get started here and let's see what we do. Oh yeah, there's another thing. I think in episode 3 of this stream here, by accident, I revealed some, well, secret keys that I used for the custom vision AI that I set up. And I tried to keep this a secret, and you see, on purpose, I've got this screen here where it says we all have secrets. So I was trying to hide these secret keys from you. But what happened was that somebody spotted that afterwards the secret key was shown in a debugger. So it's not so much of a secret anymore. So I'm not going to care about these today. Instead, I'm going to rotate them afterwards. So if you see these here, feel free to grab them, to screen capture them. They are not going to be worth anything in an hour or so. Okay, so what do we have? We've got the solution open here. You can find the completed solution over on GitHub, and that is available at github.com/chromalure/ and then I gotta look it up. Here we have it, word puzzle solver. So that's the repository that contains the completed solution. The one that I have built here over the last couple of weeks. That is a private repo that replicates everything that is in this public repo. So there's nothing different in there. Okay, so let's now switch over to the Azure portal. That's where everything begins. And the project that we have, and maybe I'm going to go back once more here. The project that we have, it involves Azure functions. So that's how I built this out. It's serverless. It's all just service-based. So we've got one function that allows us to upload an image or get the URL to upload to. We've got a blob storage here. We've got another function that is then responsible for processing or for finding the actual words in a puzzle. And I've got another one where the client can poll for results and see if the process puzzle is ready. So all of this is in our functions project that we have here in the solution. So there it is. It's called Azure Functions. That means one of the first things we want to do here is go to the portal and create these projects. I have got a resource group here in the portal, which is called Twitch, where I host everything that I show here on Twitch. And I also use this as a temporary resource group. That's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to create these projects in there now, and then I'm going to remove them again later because the completed project is using these applications that are already in there. So I call and there. That was the doorbell. So like I said, 5 minutes in this. So I'm gonna do a quick timer here. So honestly, isn't this hilarious? Isn't this exactly like I predicted it? 5 minutes into the stream, the guy rang the doorbell. It's unbelievable. I don't even want to think about the chances. So between 7 and 2 p.m., that's like 7 hours. And there's a window of about 1 hour where I'm unavailable. In 5 minutes after this window opens, they arrive. I think that's funny. Anyway, going back here at the portal, maybe I want to go full screen here so we can see this better. Here, full screen. In this Twitch resource group, let me stop the timer. In this Twitch resource group, I want to start by creating the storage. So one of the things we need is we want to upload images. They have to be stored somewhere. So let's replicate this here, this ABC storage container. And well, yeah, maybe I'm going to delete it immediately afterwards, but let's just see the creation process. So we click add here, or you could just go with create a resource. And catching my breath here. And let's search for storage. See what we have. Searching. And what we need is a storage account. That's exactly the one thing here. So let's select that and we create that storage account. There it is. So what can we configure here? Well, we got to assign this to a subscription. I've got the Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, which gives me a bunch of credits per month that I can use up here. We got to assign it to a resource group. The resource group for me is pre-selected because I had already selected that group. So it's going to be added in there. We got to give it a name. We got to place it in a specific region. And yeah, let's create it. I think it can't hurt. So let's say this is our word puzzle storage. That name is available. That's good. Let's place it in West Europe. Performance, well, depending on how much performance we need, we want to toggle that. You can see either you want to have hard disks or you want to have solid state drives. I think standard is just fine for us. We need regular storage. We don't need geo-redundant. No, we only need locally redundant storage. So let's keep this pretty basic here. Doesn't have to be that sophisticated. Access tier, here you can select, well, how fast you want that storage to be available. So if it's cool, it could be that it's in a sort of a hibernation mode. It can take a bit for it to respond, and in hot mode it's always available. Let's go through this here. Advanced, we need secure transfer. This is where we can select whether access would be allowed using HTTP versus TLS encrypted. You probably want to make this as secure as it can get, so let's enable that. And then we can configure where to access this from, whether we want soft delete support or if we delete something that it's really gone, and so on. Then tags, I don't know what oh yeah, so this is something I learned about the other day. You can tag resources on Azure. This is just additional values that you can assign. So if you browse your resources mostly through the Azure APIs, you can read these and you can categorize. It just helps you to organize things a bit. And then we would go ahead to review and create that. So it gives us an overview what we have here, and then we create that storage, right? Now, as I said, I don't see a lot of value in creating another storage account that I would have to pay for, even if I deleted it afterwards, because I already have a storage account. So it's not that you need a storage account for each and every project that you're doing. A functions project will need a storage account. So when we create our functions project in a bit, we will have to assign a storage account, but I'm going to reuse the one that is already there. So little value in adding another one. So that means we're going to go back here. This is something that you would have to do if you're starting from scratch. Now I can skip that. So the next thing is that we want to create our functions project. Now let's again click add here. Let's assume that our storage account has been created. Let's go for functions, search for functions. And you see the second one is also marked as a favorite for me here. That's a functions app. Good morning. Somebody on the chat. Nice cat picture. Let's select the function app here. Let's create this. So this would be our word puzzle functions. And I'm going to call this, I'm going to prefix this with my initials, RR temp word puzzle function. So just as a marker for me that this is nothing that I want to keep around, I'm going to get rid of these afterwards. Resource groups. Well, we should have a resource group. Let's select one. There should be the Twitch one. And it's interesting here, when creating the storage account, it pre-selected that because I was in that resource group. It didn't do this here. Hosting plan, yeah, consumption plan. So this means we only want to pay for this if our functions are actually running. The app service plan means that you're essentially replicating something like a virtual machine that is always online, that is always around, gives you faster response times, but you're paying for the time this is running. It's a bit of against the idea of functions, I'm thinking. So locations, and by the way, there's ways to optimize the consumption plan. So you can do something like pinging your function once in a while, like, I don't know, maybe every 10 minutes or every hour. I don't know what the cooldown period is. And by pinging it, that means it's gonna stay around, it's gonna remain responsive, but still you don't have to pay for it running all of the time. So location, let's place this in West Europe. It's going to be .NET based storage, and here is the selection. So where I said every functions app needs a storage, and we can use an existing one. It would create one for us here, you see. It would create one, would create a name here. But we need the storage for other purposes. So that's why I created my own previously. So here we would select the one that we just created. I select here the ABC storage container for this function app. So let's create that. So if you wonder, why not just use the function setup here and let it create the storage container or the storage app, that would work perfectly fine. But the thing is, within this container, within this storage account, I've got containers that I expect to be there. So while this is creating the functions app, we can have a look at that. Let's go into our storage container here. And there's a storage explorer. And I showed this when running all of this offline locally with the storage emulator. If I go here into the blob containers, you see here's a container that is called word puzzle uploads. That means our functions, they expect this container. The container is really, you can think of it as a folder. It expects this folder to be there. So that's why I created the storage account separately and already added this container in there. Now this is deploying here. Let's see if we can get some update. Your deployment is on the way. We gotta wait for this to complete. And deployment succeeded. Let's go to the resource. There it is. So right now there's nothing in there. This is what you get if you create a functions app directly in the portal. It is up and running. You see, I could stop it here, but it's not really doing anything. I can go there. It's loading it in a tab anyway. See what happens. So there it is. This is what you get if you access that URL that is associated with your functions project. And it doesn't really look a lot different from when you're creating, let's say, an ASP.NET MVC project. It's the same thing. You get this page here that it shows you. Now we need to add some functions in there, and there's different ways of adding these functions. You see very prominently here in the middle, it says new function, and you can do that, and you can decide how you want to create these functions. You can do it in Visual Studio. You can use Visual Studio Code, of course, and you can create them directly in the portal. This is, I think, in portal is good for demoing how easy it is to get something up and running and have some functionality up in the cloud. But I don't think this is something that you would do for a serious project. Because, well, who wants to work in the browser and in that portal if you can have Visual Studio Code locally, if you can test locally? So we're not doing that. We have already created our functions project. It's there. I created in Visual Studio 2019. I started with File, New Project, selected a functions project. So we have it here and we verified that everything is working. So that's what we use. If you don't have this, here is your starting point. This is where you can get quick start instructions. So we don't need that. Then let's see what else is in there. We can look at the function app settings, what is in there. There are two different versions of the functions. There's version 1 and version 2, the runtime versions. There's no reason to use version 1 anymore. That's nothing that you would want to use to begin with. And let's see. Here's additional configuration that you can add. We don't need anything here because, like I said, we configure all of this directly in our project. So I'm wondering, what is this here? Unauthorized host keys. I have no idea. Let's see if this is gonna cause us any trouble afterwards. I don't hope so, but we'll find out. Anyway, so how do we get our functions in there? Well, first we need to configure a couple of things. Let's go back here to overview. Besides the function app settings, we also have application settings in here. So again, as you just saw, I can go to this URL. It appears to be a website, and really it's not that different. So think of this as running some ASP.NET website in the background. It's just hidden from us. And we can configure it very similarly. We can have application settings here. And we need these application settings because our functions app depends on them. So this is the point where I'm gonna reveal these secrets here that are no longer secrets. Let's make this a bit bigger. You see, I've got a config file here in my solution that is called local.settings.json. The idea is that this local.settings.json file is used where configuration values are read from as long as you're running the project locally. This file will never be checked in. It's not under source control, it's excluded. So if somebody is cloning my repo, they do not get access to my passwords, to my endpoints, to my keys that are stored in there. So every developer can also have their own copy for local usage, which is really great and simplifies working in a team. But if we deploy our solution to Azure, then running in the cloud, we will need these configuration values. So if we run the function in the cloud, the function will want to talk to, for example, the custom vision AI, and it needs a key to do that. So whatever we have in here must be transferred over into our portal, and there it is a secret. Nobody can access this. And if we go to the app settings in here, we see there's already a bunch of settings in there. They are all hidden by default. You can make them visible or show all the values, and you can have a specific section for connection strings. So now I gotta look what I have to configure here. I gotta go to the other browser window so that I get the correct settings and I transfer them over here. Let me find these. Loading. So what do we have here? We've got this one here. Can I copy this here? I can. So the first thing we need is our storage connection string. I'm going to add this here, add a new application setting. That's going to be storage connection string. And into that storage connection string, I'm going to put the endpoint of my storage. So this is where the function will now talk to when it's running in the cloud. And this value is the same that I also have locally in this file here. Well, not really. I would have it in here if I was to use the cloud-based storage. Now, since we are running this on the local machine using the string use development storage equals true, that will tell it to talk to the storage emulator. But that string that I just pasted, if I put it in here, then my locally running version of the functions app would talk to the cloud-based storage. But this is one thing that I have to add here. Now, if you wonder where did I get this from, well, you can get this if you go to the storage project here in the Azure portal, and it will tell you the connection strings that are in there. So that's the one thing we need. Then let's see what else is in there. We need the custom vision API stuff. So let's add another one in here. That's the custom vision AI endpoint. That's not really a secret, but still good to make it configurable. Maybe that was too fast. You see, this is just West Europe API.cognitive.microsoft.com. We would find that by going to customvision.ai, select our project, and there in the properties we can find this. Then the next one is the project ID. Gotta open that too. We can have multiple projects in the AI portal, and every project has got a unique ID. So that's the project ID that we want our functions to talk to. And then finally, we need a prediction key. Now, not every function app would need that prediction key, even if it wants to communicate with a custom vision AI. But if it wants to make predictions, well, then it needs that key. But it could be that there's a function that is just there to, let's say, train the AI on other images. It would not need a prediction key, it would need another key, which is the training key. But here we need the prediction key, so let's put that in there, right, and update. And I think those are the ones that I had to add. Let me double check that I want the right ones. GitHub is slow for me today. Going back here. So we have this one, we have this one, we have that one, and we've got that one. Yeah, that looks good. So that's about all we need there. And the cool thing about these configurations is you see here, I have them got in the local settings.json. And if I go to, well, let's say I don't know, where am I using one? I don't remember. Here, if I go to the upload provider function, to get the storage connection, I'm using environment.getEnvironment variable. And this will read the value for the storage connection string. In the case of running this locally, from the local.settings.json, and if I deploy this to the cloud, it will understand that it's got to read this from the application settings. So I don't have to change anything in my code, which is really nice, really well done. Okay, so we have got these in there. Let's save these. And what is the star? There we are. So this is done. Let's go back to the functions. So now our functions are configured, which is great. The next thing is now to get our project in there. So like I said, I could right click here on the functions and choose to, where is it, publish this. I'll be able to log in and select the just created functions project, but we're not doing that. Instead, we are going to the browser once more, and I am here, there. I am here looking at dev.azure.com, which is the entry point to the Azure DevOps portal. In the DevOps portal, I signed in with the same account that I'm also using for the Azure portal. That makes it easier to connect the projects. Otherwise, you would have to deal with permissions and set up access rights. So I don't want to go into this here. And then you've got different organizations. So I created an organization. An organization, this doesn't have to be a business. It's just a way of organizing your stuff. And here I've got an organization that I called ILT or RILT. And here I've already got a project that represents the completed solution. So this is what I use for the completed GitHub repository that I referred you to. Now let's see if we can replicate what we have in here. We want to start by creating a project. And the idea is here that we want to set up something here on Azure DevOps that helps us in constantly building the solution. Whenever we make a change, whenever we push a change to our GitHub repository, it should kick off a build. And in case of a successful build, it should immediately deploy the release over to the Azure portal so that the functions that we have in our solution will show up in there. So let's see what we need here. Our project name, that would be our, I'm going to call it temp word puzzle solver again, because this is just here for showing you how to set these things up. I'm not going to keep these around. You can give it some description. Temp solution for deploying the word puzzle solver. This is just there for us as a reminder, or for others looking at the portal, understanding if we've got many projects, what this particular one is about. Right next, I have to pick where is my repository, and also is this a public project or is this a private project? Now, it doesn't really matter what I pick here because I'm going to leave it anyway. I'm going to make it public, doesn't hurt. But of course, if you've got something that you're working on internally, you want to keep that private and don't show it to the world. Let's go ahead and create that. Really hoping this is not going to take too long. Okay, this is the welcome screen that you see here. Welcome to the project, and there's different entry points that we have here. It says boards, repos. Boards is where you can keep track of your progress. You've got this Kanban board where you can move items around. You can add repositories, which is something that we want to do. Pipelines describe everything that you are doing with your repository. So there's a pipeline where you are, for example, building the project, and then there's another pipeline where we are releasing the project. So a pipeline is something where, well, we pipe things through. We process something and then we push it to the next step. And we're going to create a bunch of these pipelines now. So the first thing we want to create is a build pipeline. You see here on the left-hand side, I've got a menu of all the available options inside this project. We want to go to pipelines here. And the first pipeline is a build pipeline. Now, this is the part where I said in the beginning that something is always going wrong. I forget a step, so we'll see what fails today. Now it asks me, where is my code? And I've got different options here. You can host your code directly here inside Azure DevOps. And this means you've got a Git repo there. Now our code happens to be on GitHub. And you can see here how very different sources for our code are supported. So we've got any other Git repository, and most importantly, we of course have got GitHub here. Now this is something that I'm still struggling with. You see, if I select GitHub here, it now says YAML. This seems to be the new default. I personally am not a big fan of yet another markup language. That's what YAML stands for. You can find down here that there's the classic editor to create a pipeline without YAML. So I have to admit, me not knowing a lot about YAML, I prefer that classic editor, and I really hope that this classic editor is not going away, or if it is going away, that there will be a possibility to work around YAML. I know it allows for more configuration, for greater flexibility, to directly edit these YAML files, which are essentially build files where you tell DevOps what to do with your project. But for the basic cases, it's not really necessary. So you see here, similar setup. I can select GitHub. It wants me to authorize access. Now we got to do this. You can authorize DevOps to access your GitHub account. I'm going to do this here. And I already had all the cookies in place. Otherwise, it would show you a window where you log in with your GitHub account. If you've got two-factor authentication set up, which you hopefully have, do it. If not, then you would have to log in and grant access to your GitHub account. Now I can select the repository. I'm going to find here. See if we have got this. Here's the word puzzle solver stream project. So we tell it this is the repo that we want to work with, and I can then select the branch that I want to build and eventually deploy. Now in my repo there only is a master branch, so there's really nothing for me to select here. But of course, what you see here is you could have different pipelines where you say I've got maybe a develop branch. So whenever something in the development branch changes, I immediately want to build this and I want to push this out to some sort of preview site where internal testers can access that. And if something has been committed to the master branch, I want that to go public and live. So here, continue. And again, my good old friend YAML. So the thing is, with YAML, you have great flexibility. It says you're looking for a better experience to configure your pipelines. Like I said, I'm not confident that I can deal with YAML, so I'm skipping this. I will have to investigate that. There's now a new editor that you can check out here, but I'm going to use the good old way of creating that here. What we're looking for is a C# functions project. So let's see if we find that in here. There it is, Azure Functions for .NET. This is the template that we use. It's not necessary to use these templates. The templates are just useful because they contain a bunch of steps that might be useful if you want to, in this case, deploy a functions project. And of course, these steps are different when building a functions project versus, let's say, building a Python project, just as an example. So then we've got here a name that we give this puppy, temp Azure functions for .NET, custom integration, that's good. We have to select how we want to build this. And you see there's different ways of building this. You can even build macOS projects in here. Now, of course, we don't want to build our functions project on macOS, although in theory we could. So functions are working cross-platform, but we want to run this on VS 2019. So originally I tried this with 2017. So we'll see. A hosted Windows 2019. This is just, it's a build agent in the cloud. You could also opt to build this locally, or if you say I've got a build host somewhere, I'm going to use that. So then DevOps is going to connect to your machine, build it there, and continue, which is, of course, in some scenarios, pretty cool. Then let's see what we have here. One of the things here in the pipeline, so this is not a pipeline, it runs this from top to bottom. So here's our build pipeline. First thing is get our sources from that GitHub repository, which we already configured. Let's go through this. We don't have anything there. Then we've got different jobs running within that pipeline. And the first job, you can give it a name. That's I just call it build. Different things to configure, like what's the timeout in case it fails. We don't do anything here. And then we got to build our project here. So here, in order to build it, we will have to select the functions project in there. So by default, it's building all CS project files, and we want to change this. And I got to look up the path just to see what that is. And what I was actually looking for, let me see if I can find this in here. What I was looking for, maybe we change that. Maybe I want to change this because you see this here is using .NET Core. I would love to build this using a Visual Studio Build because it lets me directly select, it lets me very conveniently select the project that I'm building. So here I would have to manually configure it. Let's try this. So let's see if we can manipulate this here. And we say here in this build, we want to add a task. Let's search for visual. Let's see what we have here. Here's a Visual Studio Build. Build with MS Build. I'm just going to use that. I think that works better in my case here. And we can Siri. Why does Siri kick in if I say if we can? So we remove the .NET Core build here and we replace that with build solution using Visual Studio Build. So with that there, we can now say build functions. That would be the display name. Now here where it says solution, we want to change this. I'm going to select this. You see I've got the 3 dots here. It now shows me what is in my repo, and I can go through this here, and we are looking for the Azure functions. And I just want to select the Azure functions project in there because that's really what I want to build. I don't care about building the entire solution because my solution contains all kinds of test console projects and we don't need them to be built. We are focused on this functions project here. Then let's see if we need anything else in here. I'm comparing this to my other solution. Specify. This is interesting. I feel like I'm missing something here. Anyway, yeah, right. I forgot a step. So we can't just build this. We need something else. Our solution contains a lot of Nougat packages. By default, these are not available. So we will have to make the build process aware of this. So let's add another step in there. And let's search for Nougat. And see, if you use Nougat here, you have two options. You have Nougat itself, where you say I wanna restore my packages, and you've got a Nougat tool installer. So sometimes it's necessary, I'm just going to add that, sometimes it may be necessary that you say, well, I'm using a specific version of Nougat here. And you can configure this here. So we could, for example, say here, that's what I did in my case, I could say, I want to use a Nougat version that is greater than version 4.6. Because maybe the default version that we have here on DevOps isn't that one. I could add something like here saying I need 4.6 here. That makes sure that if I add this step, that these tools will be available when my project is building here. So let's do that. And let's add another one with our Nougat in place. We're gonna use the Nougat restore. Now, if you're using .NET Core, you could replace these Nougat operations by using Nougat package restore, Nougat package add, .NET package add, .NET package restore. So these would be optional. But I know that I built this project locally using the Visual Studio tools, so I want to do the same thing here in DevOps to avoid any issues. I would probably build the client project if I need that using the .NET Core tools, because this is something that I designed from scratch as a .NET Core client. So let's add Nougat here, Nougat restore. And here we got a restore. You see Nougat restore, command is restore. You can also pack push, and I don't know what you would customize, but in general you want to restore. And again, we got to point it to what we want to restore. So by default, it's picking any solution in there, but I want to be very explicit here, using my Azure Functions, and select this Azure Functions project in there. With this, now, oh, why do I have two restores now? Let's select this one. It's actually good that we have two, we're gonna need them in a bit. Maybe I click twice, let's pick the functions again. Functions. Now let's say I have got something else that I need to build my project, and by coincidence that's the scenario here in my case. So I not only need the Nougat packages from this function package or from this function project, I also need the packages from our library that we depend on. Maybe you remember, if you watched the previous streams, here's our puzzle solver library. So I could select this one too and say make sure that the packages for this one will also be restored. So I can add as many of these restore steps as I want. Now, of course, if I told the Nougat restore to just look at the solution, I wouldn't have to worry about these. It would just restore the packages of all the projects in there. But that means if I look at my project, that it would also pull the packages from my console client for all my test applications. And I don't really need this. And likewise, I don't want to build these, because they are not necessary to deploy my functions project. Now, worst case would be there's some bug or some build error in my test applications that I don't really care about if they fail, right? But that would prevent my functions project from building. That's just something I want to avoid here, so that's why I explicitly select the functions project. Let's see what we have in here. We need anything in there. I don't know why it doesn't add the build arguments like I did previous time, but we'll see. So here, the platform, let's see what this is here. Display platform setting to link. I really want to use the... Now you see, this is what I mean. It changes every time you look at these. The behavior seems to... Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. The configuration. So this is what I was looking for. Platform, build platform. So I know this one here. Let's see if I can set this. So what I was looking for here is setting link to configuration. Yep. So let's do that. And what happened? It graded out. Awesome. So what I wanted here, I wanted it to pick that configuration that I configure. So if you kick off a build, I can show this here in Visual Studio. If you kick off a build, you would select what you want to build, debug or release. Now the same is of course true when building this in DevOps. So somewhere when creating your build or when setting up or when running a build process, you got to tell it, hey, I want to create a release build, I want to create a debug build. And you are able to configure this here and make it pick that up. So here it is again. Now it's enabled again. So that's weird. Let's try this again. So which one am I looking at? I'm looking at, no, it's still grayed out. You know what? Let me see if I can just save this and go back. Save this in here. You can add a comment. Everything is gray. I want to go back in here. Now, some way, it must be possible to unlink this. By accident, I clicked this link button now. So here we are. Let's edit our build definition. And it's grayed out. So I don't know if you're watching and you know how to unlink that, I'd be curious. We'll see. Let's just keep it like that. Then next thing we need is, once the build has been created, we got to put it somewhere, because the completed build should then be deployed over to, well, to Azure in our case. You can put it somewhere. You can configure here where to place this. And let's see what we have here. You can configure this to, well, I don't want to put it back into the Git repository. Publish output. That sounds like a great place to have this. We want to create a zip file here. We want to replace anything that was there before. That's also good. And then what else can we do here? We could publish maybe debug symbols if we wanted an additional step. I'm just showing this here. So this is called symbols. Then we have it index sources and publish symbols, so that we get error messages with line numbers and everything. Let's just see, why not add it? Doesn't hurt. Some settings need attention, it tells us. Symbol server type. You know, this is really strange because I've got another window open where I'm comparing this to what I did previously, and it's really completely different. So a lot of settings have changed here. It's very interesting. So this up to the search pattern, everything is the same, and symbol server type, this is something that doesn't even show up here. That's funny. So I really don't know symbol server in this organization. I don't know. You know, I want to try something really quick here. I want to try something. Let's remove that. Let's go back here to the pipelines. And I wonder if it has got to do with the template that I originally picked. Let's see if I create a new one here, use the classic editor. So we pick Git here. Let me select this again. Just double checking that I selected the right thing. So I was looking for, and I remember this was something that said C# functions. So why is that no longer there? It's now Azure Functions for .NET. So that definitely is a bit of a different template. It changed, but that's what we want. So that's just fine. It looks like other options were added here. Okay, so let's just live with what we have. Let's edit this. And there we've got our artifact being published. That's good. So that should build our solution, and we can actually try this. So let's go ahead and queue this. Let's queue a build here. And we can select this here. And it's now waiting. We should see this getting built and hopefully built without errors. I'm just gonna sit and wait here a bit. So the number of builds that you can run here, that depends on whether a host is available. So Microsoft has got a bunch of build hosts that you can use, and now it's working. You see it's initializing it, it's checking it out from Git. So it's running a bunch of Git commands. And here you see the individual steps. It says install the tools, it has checked everything out. It is now restoring our Nougat packages. That's all looking good so far. I don't know why it's taking so long to check this out, but what we should see here is that it's really running these commands like you would do locally on the command line. It's running them here in the portal. Well, restoring this takes longer than expected, but there is no error as far as I can tell. Oh, let's just wait. I mean, if this is taking too long, we could just continue. Said, oh, there it completed. So it skipped this one. Apparently it didn't find, why did it skip that? Now it succeeded. So it restored the other packages. You can see all of the output here. If you select this, you can exactly see what is going on. Then we've got our next task where it is now building the project. So this is the actual build process. Just like building it locally in Visual Studio. Again, I can select this, I can look at the log files, and I can find that it succeeded, it's all good. Archive creation failed, one error. So let's see. The system cannot find the file specified, publish output. Yeah, I'm not really surprised because I was wondering about the same thing before. What is that? What is that thing that is trying to archive there, or what is that folder? So let's go back here to our builds and edit that. Let's look at the archive process. Prepend root folder names. I don't want that. Did I select that? That should not be selected. Let's try again. I think I clicked that by accident when I checked what this is. Fixing archive path. You can see you can have some comments here with every deployment that or with every build that you're running. So while this is running, I'm going to continue here. We're just waiting if this succeeds. So the next step that we're doing, once this has been built, hopefully successfully, we need to release this. And releasing, well, it's a different pipeline. You can have builds, as many as you like, and then you select which of those should go out to Azure in our case. Now that can be the last successful, that can be an older version. We start by creating a new pipeline, so pretty similar to what we did before. And I'm gonna open up my cheat sheet here and see what we have. And again, we've got a whole lot of templates that we can use here. So let me again see what we have in here that matches functions. And there it is. Deploy a function app to Azure Functions. That sounds exactly like we want to do here. Deploy functions app to Azure Functions. Select this and apply. And you get this visual representation of the deployment or of the release process. So here's what we have to do. We need to select this stage here. Every release has got different stages. So one stage would be, for example, make sure that other members on the team have verified that this build or this release should really go out. So that's a gated deployment. Now we only have this one here. So we will have to select that. And we need to, let me see, select up here. So this left-hand side, this is what happens before deployment. We can configure this. Let's see what is there. And I'm gonna go in here, see what I configure to match these. So there's nothing we want to do after the release, no additional triggers, that's all good. Then let's select the options here. This describes what should be done. I see here it says the only step that we're performing is move this over into Azure. So by the way, while looking at this, I remember if you go to the portal, to the Azure portal that is, and you are looking at the Azure functions. So let me see if I can find this. Is it here? It was somewhere in here. Or is it there if you select the functions app? I don't find it anymore. So somewhere in here, it's something that I tried to use, but then I gave up because it was too limited. Somewhere in here, you can set up the deployment process. So within the Azure portal, you have got certain ways of creating a DevOps pipeline. It's behind the scenes, the same steps are happening that we just perform here directly. It's just handling it on our behalf. However, what they offer in here is a bit limited. So doing this from within the Azure portal would, for example, require our repository to have a very specific structure. I don't remember the exact requirements, but it was something like the functions have to be in a folder named, I don't know, functions, and every functions must be in a separate subfolder, something like that. That did not meet my structure, so I decided to go with the more flexible approach. This is what I'm showing you here. Okay. So let's see what we have here. And again, it's really funny because this is again looking differently. So what I have got over here, let me see if I can find that. Update Azure functions, so that's not it. So what I have got over there in the previous version, it used this one. It used Azure App Services. So these things are in flux. It's changing. So let's see if we can make this happen. This should obviously work because we have got an Azure Function app. So deploy Azure Function app, that's good. Azure subscription, this setting is required. Let's select it. Yeah, right. So now we somehow got appointed to the subscription over in the Azure portal. The subscription was the one that was called Visual Studio Enterprise. Question, why are you doing your son's homework? I'm not. So just getting back, this is a question that comes up every time. The original, he had this homework assignment that has nothing to do with cloud or Azure or anything. He just had this assignment. Okay, here's a word puzzle, find the words. And he had problems finding the remaining 2 words. I think he couldn't find them. And I told him, yeah, they are here and there. But at the same time, I thought, well, couldn't the computer solve that? So that just was the original trigger. Wow! All right. So here we are inside the connection. So the way this is working, the way that DevOps can talk to the Azure portal is via a connection. So we need to tell it that there is that it is allowed to do this. So we can add a new service connection in here. And I gotta see where this is. We need to select Azure. What is this? Type Azure Resource Manager. There we have it. So here I can give this a name, and I'm gonna call this, what should we name it? Visual Studio Subscription, maybe. Azure Visual Studio Subscription. environment, Azure Cloud, subscription, Visual Studio Enterprise. I wonder, is that the right thing? Connection scope level. Resource group, there we have it. Now let's see, where's our Twitch resource group? So these are the things that we have got over there in the Azure portal. I'm inside I added my functions project to this. If I go to overview, I added it to the resource group called Twitch, and there we are connecting to. So looking at the chat, if you want to see the chat, by the way, there it is. Why do documentations of APIs give quick curl examples? How do you integrate that in a browser? So the question is why the documentations show you curl examples? Well, I guess because that's what works pretty much across all platforms. That would be my answer to that. How do you integrate that in a browser? So at least if you're looking at the documentations around everything Microsoft, you should in theory always find examples that are about curl. There's direct REST calls, and then there's examples for various languages, including C#, and very often there's then a C# client library that you can use. So if you want to know more about this, maybe you want to go back to the previous sessions that I made where I'm showing this, how can my client connect to the server. I'm showing exactly these things, but I can't speak for all documentation out there, of course. Righty, going back here, we have got our config setup here, I hope. There, I should save it. Let's save this. Already had that. There we go. And then we should be able to pick this connection from within our release pipeline configuration. There, it's Azure Visual Studio subscription. I don't need this one here. This one. So wouldn't it be wonderful if it let me select that in here now? This setting is required. Great, let me pick it. Let me please pick it. Azure subscription. So it doesn't seem to pick it up here. What is going on here? What did I do wrong? Azure Visual Studio. I don't know. I don't know why it doesn't see it. Is it just a matter of refreshing? Yeah, go ahead, reload. It should offer me that, right? That would be amazing. Let's see. Select a template function. Yep, let's configure this. Now that's funny. Didn't I select exactly that before? So now this is a drop down and now it shows me the connection that I just created, but it also gives me direct access because I am logged in. I don't have to understand this, do I? Let's just make sure that I'm using the right one, because if you look at this here, there's two Visual Studio Enterprise ones, and I want to make sure that I pick the right one. I think it is this one. I got to double check that I'm using the right one. So why do I have two? You can share access to these subscriptions. So we're currently working on a project, and a coworker, his subscription is also called Visual Studio Enterprise. So I got to make sure that I pick mine. So there we have it. Now let's authorize that. So now behind the scenes, it's performing the steps that I just did manually, where I created this service connection. I have no idea why it didn't show up before. Some hiccup. Because it should show this. I'm logged in with the same user here. There we go. All right, then we've got the app type here. This is running on Windows, not on Linux. And our app service name. No app service name. Let's reload. No results found. Something is wrong here today. So the app service that we want to deploy to, that should be the one that we've just created. So this one here, that's the app service name. So I don't know why it's in the right subscription. You see this matches, it's the 158 in the end. I can close this one here. And this one should definitely show up in here because I'm looking at 158. It's a function app on Windows. I mean, you can switch this here so it refreshes. It doesn't find it. Oh, this field is linked to one setting in Deploy Azure Function App. Let's try something. Let's just see if we can convince it to use that here. Our template puzzle, what did I name it? Function app settings. Let's just see if we can convince it to use this here. So it lets me paste something in there. I'm curious. Folder, yeah, let's save it. So now it asks me where would I want to store this deployment information. Right. So that's the task that we want to perform here. Move that over to Azure. Now let's see if there's anything else that we need to configure here. Select the app service name, we did that. Then, yep, here. So we're back to our overview. Now we need to tell it what is it that we want to move over. We need what is called an artifact. And an artifact, that is in our case, the result of the previous build process. So we made it build the project, and hopefully it succeeded. We wanted to go back there. That creates a zip file. That is our artifact here. Let's use that. And let's see if we can find something in there. That's the build pipeline. So we selected the pipeline that we created previously. We want to use the latest in here. And again, I want to compare this so that I get the same results here. That should be the latest, and we need to give it some name. Yeah, let's just use that. Let's add that. That should be this here. Okay. Now, what else should be done? Here, you see this little icon. It looks like this is just highlighting or a marker or an indicator that, hey, this, what you're looking at here, this box is important, but you can actually click this one here separately from the box. You see, if I click the box, I'm getting artifact here. And if I click this lightning here, it is a way of configuring the triggers. So what I want here is, I could say, I want continuous deployment. So this is not really where the magic is happening. So far, we just replicated the build process in DevOps. But now we say, if a new build is available, we want that to be released. And that's what I can toggle on here. And you can do something similar for if there's a pull request, you want that to be deployed. So that's what we have here. Let's save. We come in initial setup. But this is really just for the history of what has changed. Okay, so that's our release pipeline. Let's see what our build is doing. And it failed again. Bummer. What is going on here? Oh, let's see what failed. No such file or directory. So it fails to, it's the same problem as before. It fails to retrieve the zip file that it should create. Let's see if we can find anything in there. No such file or directory. It doesn't even create it. Let's see if we can reconfigure that. Edit the build here. That is so weird. I never had a problem with this particular step. But like I said, there's always something new. Let's see if we can find out. Let me compare to this one here. Build solution. Let's double check. You know, there's one thing that I notice here. Well, this one here is still bugging me. Let me try something. Let me add another one in here. And let's see if we can configure this differently. Visual Studio Build. Let's add that. Let's select our functions project one more. Your functions, this one here. Yep, that should be the CS project file latest. Build arguments. So by additional arguments. So what I used in everything that I configured previously here on DevOps, I did not link. I entered all of these manually, and there are certain variables that you can use. If you wonder how the heck would I know that this is $ open parenthesis build platform, you can look them up. So if you Google for if you Google for DevOps placeholders and variables, you will find them. And I've never used this linking process. I don't know if it wasn't there in the past. I just got used to adding those. I would say I want to build on the specific platform for a specific build configuration. So that's, now of course I should put this into the right thing here, there, and there. That's where it belongs. And the other thing here is I've got a bunch of build arguments that I'm not exactly sure where I got them from. I'm gonna give this a try here. So maybe, not this here. So it could well be that I had similar problems when setting this up initially and did a bit of research and found these arguments to fix it, or I found these arguments in a solution that I used previously and I just copied them over. So what do we have here? Deploy on build. Well, no, actually that should not be it. We don't want to deploy anything on a build. Deploy default target, web publish file system. I'm not sure. Publish URL, agent, temp directory, web app content. We give it a try. I'm going to remove them afterwards because, like I said, I don't think this should have any effect here. And the other thing here is, let me get rid of this one here. The archive files here, that also is different. So that's archive files, and that should of course be the same. That should be the same temp folder that I have over there, right? So it's pretty clear that it can't find it. So this should point to this one here, and I do not know why it doesn't let me select that. Archive type zip. So we told it to build in there, and that's what we want to archive. That kind of makes sense, but why would it not use the defaults? I don't know. So let's see. Let's save and queue that. That looks. Anything else down here? Publish artifact, staging directory. Yeah, that's good. So you see, all of these are placeholders that you can look up and use in here. Let's give it another try. Now we already have we've got the release pipeline set up. So that means if that build succeeds, it should also push it over. It should directly deploy that. So this has been queued. And I'm looking for one more setting in here. There it is, triggers. So you see these are tabs up here. It's not super obvious, looks a bit like buttons, but here we design our build setup. And if we go to triggers, we can say that we want continuous integration. So this is a setting that I want to enable here. With continuous integration, this is different from continuous deployment. Continuous integration is about the build process. So what we want here is, we want to say, whenever something was changed in our branch, whenever something was pushed to our Git repository, we want that to be built. We want that build to be triggered. And I can tell it here what I want to build here. I want to go for master. Let's save that. I'm not going to queue it because we already have got a build running. Let's see what this is doing. So this is running. Ah, you see it succeeded. It succeeded. It skipped. Why did it skip this one now? Download the log. And this totally looks like, I guess it skipped it because it had already built it. So that's fine. Publish artifact, succeeded. Boom, done. Okay, so it built. We created a build and it did it. Now let's look at releases. And this is from 1047, this is right now. So because the build is now available, that triggered our deployment, our release pipeline. Let's look at this. This is cute. And again, it's now waiting for an agent. It needs a machine, a virtual machine that is capable of running that deployment. It got the artifact, our zip file, and it's now moving that zip file over to the to Azure. So essentially, it's copying it. It's pretty much like right-clicking in Visual Studio, saying publish and upload it. So it deployed it, and when this is done, we should be able to switch over to the Azure portal and see that our Functions app has arrived there. Successfully deployed. Oh, I think if we go here, let's refresh this here. It's still busy, and there we are. So you see now it changed. We now have got these three functions over in the portal. So this succeeded. Now we can give this a try. That's of course important now. We go here to our function. No, I go here to our Functions app project, to overview, and this is the URL that I'm using. I just want to maybe use Postman to see that we can really access this now. Postman is a little tool that I like to use to test RESTful endpoints. And I also used this during the previous sessions where I verified that my local host is working as expected. So here I've got the Twitch word puzzle. Let's just use the upload provider, right? So the upload provider is the one that is supposed to return us the URL that we are going to upload to, and currently it's pointing to localhost. I'm going to change this here. Instead of going to localhost, I want to go to the URL that we found in the portal. So let's send this. And indeed, what we're getting back here is some JSON, and it says we should upload our file to abc storage container.blob. So this is no longer a local instance. This is now in the cloud. Now let's try this for real. Let's go here to our project, and we have got a console client here. This is the test client, and the base URL is currently pointing to localhost. I'm going to change this here, make it point to what we just deployed, and I want to see if this is working. So this is now the client test app where I'm uploading an image and let the AI process it. I want to see if what worked locally also does work in the cloud. And apparently it uploaded it. It's now waiting for it to complete. And of course, if we switch over there to the cloud, we could see that it had executed that. Let's go in here into functions. Little processor. See if we can get some log output maybe. That takes. So question here, are Azure functions similar to Google Cloud functions? That's a great question. If you say you're not familiar with Azure functions, I'm not familiar with Google Cloud functions, so I really can't tell if they are the same thing or similar. The idea of Azure functions is that you only write that code that you want to execute in the cloud. So you don't have to worry about any virtual machines. You don't have to worry about any websites or any other platforms that you manage. You just write the code that should be triggerable via HTTP, GET, POST, whatever, or that should be triggered if something changes in your database. So yeah, you answered it, they are the same. So I don't know what's going on here. The portal seems to have a problem. This doesn't refresh. Let me refresh completely here. It doesn't seem like it's running anything here. Monitor. There we are. So what time is this? Was it successful? No, this is, something is wrong. Something is not quite working. You just saw that the portal is not very responsive. Let's just see. So this is 8, it succeeded there, but then it failed afterwards. So something is going on here. Anyway, so let's just wait if this catches up. But while we're getting back to this, so there's another thing that I wanted to show you. What we did here, we made it pull the source code from GitHub, made it build that in the cloud on a hosted build agent. And whenever the build succeeds, we made it deploy that over to the Azure portal. Now, since we have continuous integration build on, we should be turned on. We should be able to trigger a build by just changing our repo. And this is something that I would like to show you. Let's go here to my local repository. And well, here's one thing that I changed, right? You see, the last change that I made was I went from the local host to the actual cloud-based solution. And so there's a change in there. And now let's go ahead, and I'm just wondering, is this, yeah, that's enough. So we're gonna just say update program.cs, let's commit that, and we're committing to master, to our master branch. Now by doing this, I'm going to push this up to GitHub, waiting for this to resolve. So now my repository changed. And if I go into builds here now, we should be able, is there a refresh button in there? Oh, there isn't. We should be able to see that it triggers a build. There we are. So it says, this is the commit message that I just added, update program.cs. Because I enabled it here in DevOps, this is now starting a build. And if a new build is available, that will start a new release and it will push it over. So we now have got the full flow. We change something locally, we say it's done, it's ready for deployment, we commit to master, it will pick it up here, it will build it, it will deploy it, and the latest version is up there on Azure running there. Now we could add other things like deployment slots, saying we only want to deploy to a beta website first before we go to the real thing. But that's then all handled in the Azure portal. But that's essentially it. This is what I wanted to show you today. What I don't know is why this one here is unhappy. I mean, it succeeded now, but it looks like the client is never getting back any response. Oh, let's give this another try here, maybe. I don't know if I started this before the functions were completely deployed, or I would have to analyze now what's going on. So we can see what it's doing here. A refresh. This is for some reason super slow now. $850. I see the times are, oh, results may be delayed for up to 5 minutes. Yeah, that would explain it. So I don't even see the latest one here. So this is where now the debug process begins, unfortunately. So what could go wrong, or what would happen? Well, we could make sure that our client can reach the function. So let's have a quick look, but I'm not going into the debugging now. I suppose that I got some configuration value wrong in my app settings, something like that. So let's see what is working and what isn't. Let's just see if we can get the upload URL. So apparently that is working. It's getting a URL that it can upload to. It is then creating a blob, and it says it wants to upload this. Now we can verify that this upload is working. So let's go to the portal here and see if that was added successfully. Where's my Twitch resource group? We need to go to the storage container here, and we can explore what is in there, and it should have uploaded our image in there. So blob containers, word puzzle uploads. We see that 1057.37, so here it is. We have got an image, 125K in size, so the upload succeeded. That means the functions are indeed working, they are responding. And now I want to see what is the getting the response. This is what fails. And there we have got an error. So status code 401 unauthorized. API puzzle results. So for some reason I'm getting a 401 for the results. That's interesting. Well, let's have a quick look at that. I don't know why that specific function would return a 401 now, unless I disabled it. Oh. No, it's not. So it's enabled. Puzzle results / blob ID. That's where we want to get that, and that's what we have here, right? API puzzle results / ID, and ID is set. I don't know what is complaining about. Puzzle results. Nope, get puzzle result. Oh, wait a second. Yep, so there it is. I made this, I added authorization. That's why. Here's a bug in the code. That's why. So this one uses authorization at function level, but this should really be anonymous. There we go. Because all our functions are anonymous. So this is what is, let me use the other one here as an example. Where's the upload provider? There we are. So this is what we want, and that's why. But that's a great example of using continuous integration and deployment, because now I would go ahead and just say fix auth in results function, commit to master, push that, and that's really all I have to worry about. It will now trigger a build and it will redeploy it, and we're all happy, and then it will work. So maybe we can't wait for this to complete. I'm sure it's going to work now. Maybe we can't wait if it takes too long. But that's essentially it. So recapping what we did today and what we did over the last 6 sessions in total. I want to go here to my overview picture. Like I explained, the idea was be able to provide an input image with a word puzzle and let the machine figure out where the words are. That was the ultimate goal. We started in step number 1 by creating an algorithm that would search for the words. And it works on a grid of ASCII characters. Now, unfortunately, the image we have is not ASCII characters. So here's what we did. We uploaded the image to a blob storage in the cloud. Whenever an upload arrived, delivered via a function, it would trigger another function that would read the image and split it into individual sub-images. So one image for every cell here that we have. So having a 14 by 14 image, we would end up with 196 sub-images, each image representing one individual character. This is then handed over to a custom vision API, which tries to figure out, well, what character are we looking at here? This happens asynchronously. So this function is running in the cloud, it's doing its thing. And when it's done, it's writing the result back into the blob storage. It says, this is what I found. These are the ASCII characters, and it then calls the algorithm that we implemented completely separately. And it runs it, and it says, okay, these are the words that I found. The words will also be stored in the blob storage. Now, for the client to have a chance to figure out if that operation has been completed, if the word puzzle has been processed, it can talk to yet another function, passing in a unique ID for the just uploaded image, and see, is my image done? Because recognizing all these individual characters and finding the words can take a bit. And when it's done, it can pick up the results. And the function that is responsible for spitting out the results, this is just where I found there was a bug. And we now added automatic deployment and automatic build process. So whenever we change something, this is immediately going out to the cloud. That was part 6 today. Now it's still running here. I don't think it's worth waiting for this here. Let me see. It's still going. Yeah, it's still in the build process. But yeah. So if you want to try this out, like I said, you can find the completed solution here at github.com/chromalure/wordpuzzlesolver. I'm gonna put this in here into the chat window. So this is the project. to look at if you're interested in replicating this. It's not just a completed project like you see, it is a complete tutorial containing all the steps down here, how to get there, how to set everything up locally. And of course, you can go back to the recorded streams, watch them again if you prefer that way of having the content delivered. I saw some of you already subscribed. Thanks for that. Thanks to the new followers. Always appreciate that. And I think with this, let's just call it a 1.5 hours. That's always my goal. 5 minutes overtime now, unless this one here completes. That would of course be the bonus. And it seems like it's done, is it? That would be amazing. Let's just see it succeeded. Let's give it a try. It just finished. Let's run the console client one more time. I really hope it's working now. Great question here. How do you decide if you should use Azure Functions or set up a VM? Well, I think the decision is not so much between functions versus a VM. The decision these days is functions versus a full-blown web API project. So I wouldn't want to, or running this in containers as an example. So I wouldn't want to manage a virtual machine, but I wouldn't want to have the infrastructure provided. That's sort of the decision that you have to make. You got to keep in mind that with functions, it is ideal for projects where you know that, or where you don't want to pay for all of the infrastructure. So if you have got a function, only if that function is running, you pay on a per second basis. So if you've got a system where there are a lot of little things going on, like for example, there's a checkout process for your shopping cart or something like that, and you know that this is being called, I don't know, 100 times a day, and it runs for 3 seconds. That's an ideal candidate for running it in a function, because you will only pay for this 100 times 5 seconds of execution. And you don't have to worry about updating software or installing patches on your machine or configuring anything. Whereas if you say, well, I've got something that is constantly running, I need that, well, then functions are maybe not optimal. You could use them, but you end up paying more. So it's, I would say it's if you have got this microservices compatible project that you're working on, and you know it's not running constantly, then functions are a good candidate. This still isn't working here. This is, what is going on here? And now we got a 404, great. Man, I'm giving up. I've got the completed project up and running. I don't feel like fixing this temporary solution now. The completed project is running. I have no idea why it is now no longer, it doesn't show the, or why it's giving me a 404 right here now. And like I said, I recommend if you want to try it out, then just grab the completed project, because we could maybe add another hour of debugging here. With that, I would like to thank everybody for attending. I'm probably going to do another stream next week, same time. Don't know the topic yet, but looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks everybody for watching. Until then, have a great day. Bye.